I'm Dan Garvin. I was a Scientologist for 27 years. I got involved when I was 17 years old. I already believed in a lot of the things that Scientologists believe in, and most of the rest of it was entirely possible and seemed reasonable to me. So it didn't seem crazy the way a lot of the beliefs would seem to most people. It just seemed like a way that I could achieve the things, the experiences that I already thought were real but didn't know how to get to. And I had a semi-scientific education and background, and I liked science, the hard sciences and math, but I didn't really understand the scientific method. I just thought science was cool. So here comes this guy who says, here's an engineering approach to the spirit and the mind. And I said, and my cousin was the one who got me involved, and he said, yeah, I can make you leave your body right here and now. You'll still be alive, but you'll be outside your body. I thought, wow, that's something I wanted to do for a long time. I believed in it at the time. But he wouldn't do it, but he would sell me a Dianetics book. So I read it, and okay, sounds interesting. If it works, it's great. Kind of weird the way it's written, but we'll give it a shot. And I gave it to my brother, who was quite a bit older than I was. I was still a minor. He was an adult, and he ran with it. He went off and started getting auditing right away, and came back and said, this is the shit. This works. It's great. It's 100% right. And I really respected him and his opinion, and I was in. And because of the way I was pretty much made for Scientology. When I heard about the Sea organization, which has you sign a billion-year contract, you come back lifetime after lifetime, I knew that was for me, and he just told me about it. He wasn't trying to recruit me. He wasn't a member himself. I knew that that's where I was headed. So I fit in. I was able to reconcile the beliefs I had with Scientology's beliefs. I was able to rationalize, and make everything fit so that Scientology was my worldview, 100%. Everything that I could experience or read was filtered through that mindset. And I made it work for a long time. I worked for them for 25 years in the Sea organization. That's sort of their elite, most dedicated core of members who run things at the top. And everything seemed right to me for most of this time, but and I was able to even rationalize they promised godlike OT, or operating Thetan abilities, and I never had these, but I talked to other people that had seen it, or they had them, or whatever, and I was able to believe it. Kind of, I wasn't far enough along up the bridge, as they call it, to have this, and these people were, and I knew them, and I trusted them, so good enough. And I'll just take it, until I still had this kind of, well, it could all be bullshit, but, as far as I know, it isn't, and there's a lot of people who seem to be certain that it's really correct and does work, so I'll go with it. And I did, and after 2 decades, it's not that Scientology wasn't working for me. I wasn't even getting really much Scientology myself by then, but I was still in the management organization, and it was clear that our goals of world conquest and clearing the planet making everyone, and we were there because we had to be, because the Earth was on a downhill ski slope to oblivion, and only Scientology could rescue mankind. And it was clear that we weren't rescuing shit. Everybody hated us. We'd go to these fantastic events, polished events, saying how, we've, the entire government of Albania is adopting Scientology. But then you'd never hear about it again, and it's like a couple years later, Scientology, Albania, huh? Oh yeah, that didn't go over so well. And it's like this event after event. We were not progressing. I had heard that close to the time I left, the entire international organization of Scientology was in a state of emergency, they call it, which basically means their international statistics were on a 13-year downtrend. And yet, everywhere you turn, you hear expansion like never before, 8 million members. And you don't see those 8 million members. I mean, I lived in LA. That's where there's more Scientologists than anywhere else. And you could barely get, 4,000 people to come to an event with crush regging and threats. And this was the management technology, just like L. Ron Hubbard's mental, spiritual technology. Everything he wrote was supposed to be, the one perfect, correct, workable technology. And it, whatever was or wasn't happening with people on a personal or spiritual level, it sure was not working on an organizational or international level. So, and the people running this were the most OTs of all. They were the people who, should have benefited the most from Scientology's spiritual, supercharging, godlike abilities. And they were incompetent idiots. And Scientology as an organization wasn't heading anywhere except down. And was lying about it in addition. So that kind of, if that's the best that Scientology can offer, maybe I better rethink this whole thing. It took me a while, kind of slow, but I did. And started thinking, the question that I finally asked myself was, okay, all these fantastic OT phenomena, they call it, like mind reading, mind over matter, things that are, if you believe in the laws of physics, they're not possible. Scientologists and OTs absolutely believe they're true. Past lives, they believe in past lives, and the ability to recall what happened in a past life. Well, I thought, what if there's some other explanation besides it's true? Because, the mind can play tricks on people. People hallucinate. People believe things they want to. I mean, that could be true in Scientology, too. Well, once you start thinking down those lines, you can't really stop. Or I couldn't, anyway. I mean, the way I used to put it was I started thinking and I got carried away. And that is what happened. It was still a long process. I wanted to believe. But I just started applying. I had critical thinking abilities. This is the weird thing. We're able to compartmentalize our thinking in our minds and not use critical thinking on everything we do or see or approach. And that's what I was doing towards Scientology. It got a pass on things that I would not have believed for a moment if it hadn't been from Scientology. So I started applying that same standard to everything, including Scientology, and it didn't pass the test. It's like there's no real basis for these beliefs. All these OT phenomena, as far as anyone has ever demonstrated to me, it's just hallucination or self-deception or made-up bullshit. And, well, that, of course, made me unfit to be a Sea Org member. And I wasn't a Sea Org member for much longer. I went through their process of what they call rooting out. You have to confess your crimes and I don't even want to go into it. It's a long story, and it's on the internet as well. You have to go through a lot of hoops to get out, or they declare you a suppressive person and you become fair game. I didn't want to become fair game. I didn't want my wife, who remained in the Sea Org, to be forced to leave me or to disconnect from me, because Scientologists have to disconnect from any SP, suppressive person. And I wanted to investigate Scientology with a truly open but skeptical mind outside. And you can't investigate Scientology while you're a Sea Org member. You have to believe. And so I left on their terms and with a sort of open mind, but to tell you the truth, I wasn't really very hopeful by that time. And within a few weeks, of course, I researched on the internet. I looked for actual Scientology phenomena. I looked for evidence of OT phenomena. I looked on James Randi's website, where he offers $1 million for any evidence of paranormal phenomena. And I knew that people had claimed, they could demonstrate it. And Scientology, nothing, no sign of it. It's just a belief system. I mean, that's what the church told the IRS. Well, we don't really have any. This is not a science. This is a faith. People believe things, which I thought was not the Scientology that I became acquainted with, but I also understood it was just for getting out of paying taxes. Anyway, there was nothing, and I finally looked at the OT3 materials, which were by that time available online, in LRH's handwriting, and I had worked with LRH documents for years in their mimeograph division, so I knew his handwriting. I knew they were genuine, even though I hadn't seen them before. And I read them, and the reason they're supposedly confidential is because it will harm you or even kill you if you're exposed to this extremely sensitive material before you're spiritually ready. Well, I read it and I wasn't spiritually ready, and it was, so what? This is just like all the other shit that they say and have said for years. So I wasn't impressed, but near that article I found another article which was about, it called itself a scientific analysis or something of OT3, and the guy who wrote it, which I'd never heard of, but he talked about the volcanoes that are in the OT3 story or myth. Supposedly this all went down 76 million years ago, and like about half of those volcanoes never even existed 76 million years ago. The Earth changes, there's tectonic movement, and volcanoes come up and go down, and those weren't there then, so that definitely didn't happen. And that was it for me. That was like, okay, here is my, I can't prove what did or didn't happen on Marcab in this, Scientology spacefaring civilization, because I don't know, this is just people's past life stuff. But here's something that they're definitely claiming actually happened here on Earth, or TGAC, and it did not happen. Hubbard either made it up or dreamed it or hallucinated it or was on drugs. It didn't happen. That was my final straw. That was, okay, I'm not in any way, shape, or form any longer a Scientologist. I'm done. And from that point forward, it was just a matter of every time I would encounter, you're programmed. You really are programmed. Every time I would think a certain way, I'd see this and I'd think the Scientology response to it. I thought, wait, that's a Scientology response. That's what L. Ron Hubbard says. Is that really right? And just apply critical thinking. And it was an exercise, and I would do it every day, many times a day, and then gradually less and less, because I was starting to think like a normal person again. I was out. I was done. And I survived, I didn't really have a lot of horror stories from Scientology. That's probably why I stayed around so long. But it's a cult, it's a belief system, and it's a very insidious mind control system. Not effective at all on a lot of people, but for the people it is effective on, it's pretty effective, and it can be devastating. I escaped relatively unscathed, other than losing more than half of my life to it, but I'm glad I'm out.